Good evening, children. Let's look into the chapter, the Second World War. As we have already done this chapter, now I am moving to, we have done the First World War, now I am moving to the Second World War. Chapter number 11, that was Rise of Fascism and Nazism, have been deleted by the Council according to the re-revised syllabus. Now let's talk about now. As you know that the First World War was from the year 1914 to the year 1918. From year 1914 to 1918, the First World War continued, and a Treaty of Versailles was signed in the year 1919. This treaty, which was signed in the year 1919, gave a severe blow, and after 20 years, nearly after 20 years, it gave shape to the Second World War. Now, this war, the war which took place during the year 1939, or we can say that the First World War was the root cause of the Second World War. Okay, the First World War which was fought was on a big scale, but it was not so advanced. Means the arms and ammunitions which were used, they were used in a bit of limitations. But the Second World War, which gave birth to a totally new world, and the damages which were caused by the Second World War surpassed all other wars. Means जो सबसे ज़्यादा नुकसान हुआ था वो था Second World War का. And till today the nations are suffering from the disastrous war effects of the Second World War. Or in other words, I can say that the Second World War was a complete lockdown for the small nations, especially the newly independent nations. The newly independent nations, it was good for the newly independent nations that now they were not tied in any of the groups. Means they were not the colonies of the Britishers or any of the European powers. Now the nations were free. Now children, let's talk about what were the causes of the Second World War. क्या कारण थे द्वितीय विश्व युद्ध के, हम उस पर बात करते हैं. पहला पॉइंट, फर्स्ट पॉइंट इज डिससैटिस्फैक्शन विद द ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्साइल्स. देखो इसमें नियरली 5 causes are there. First point is dissatisfaction with the treaty of Versailles. Second point is rise of fascism and Nazism. The next point is Japanese invasion of China. Then comes the failure of the League of Nations, and the last one is Hitler's invasion of Poland. Now today firstly I am going to talk about dissatisfaction with the Treaty of Versailles. What were the causes, or what was there in treaty which created a lot of unsatisfaction, a lot of negativity in the minds of the defeated nations? Firstly, we should talk about that. Now, as you know that during the World War, during the Second World War, it was divided into two parts. It was totally divided into two parts. And one part was belonging to England, France, that team, and the other one was Germany, Italy, and Japan. Now, as you know, children, after the First World War, a treaty was signed just for the sake that in future no war should take place. In this, USA, England, France have played a very crucial role in the formation of the League of Nations. Means the Treaty of Versailles was specially signed, means the ideologies were given by USA, England, France. But USA didn't become a member of this. And on the other side, Russia and Germany, Russia and Germany, they were not being made the members of the League of Nations because both the nations were communist nations. Now, as you know, that this treaty was a great blow to Germany and Italy. Germany and Italy, it was a great blow. Germany was made the root cause of the Second World War. The treaty demanded annexation of German territories. Now, what has happened after this Treaty of Versailles? Now, due to this Treaty of Versailles, many parts of Germany have been taken away. Many parts of Germany were being taken away from Germany. New areas means the sense of, I would say, defeat in the First World War and the conditions which were imposed by the Treaty of Versailles made the Germans feel totally humiliated and helpless. Germans looked down upon the Weimar Republic, which had signed such a disgraceful treaty. Now, what were the problems? Germany was forced to cede large chunks of her territory to France. जर्मनी की जितनी भी टेरिटरीज थी फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद वो किसके पास चली गई? फ्रांस, बेल्जियम, पोलैंड एंड डेनमार्क. And all the colonies which were away, overseas जितनी भी colony थी, all of them were divided or distributed among the victorious powers. Third point, सबसे बड़ा जो झटका लगा था, Germany was bound to pay $33 billion. Next point, and the German defense was reduced to 1 lakh. Okay, the terms of this treaty were greatly resented by the Germans who eagerly looked for an opportunity. ये जो treaty बनी थी इसके जो points थे, the Germans were totally unsatisfied and they were looking for a chance on which they can encash all their suburbs, they can sort out all their problems. Okay, now Hitler came in power और हिटलर का टारगेट क्या था? To rebuild the empire of Germany and to recapture the lost colonies. ये तो हमने सिर्फ बात करी जर्मनी की. दूसरी तरफ Germany was divided into two parts. जर्मनी को दो पार्ट्स में डिवाइड कर दिया गया. What was the cause? To give a route to Poland. पोलैंड को रास्ता देने के लिए जर्मनी को दो पार्ट्स में डिवाइड कर दिया गया. This was totally this gave rise to the spirit of revenge. और जर्मन्स जो थे सिर्फ वो एक मौके की तलाश में थे that if they will get an opportunity they will take the action. और सीरियस चीज़ है, if you are planning about a battle then without aggressive policies and armaments the war is not possible. Without these two aspects, that is aggressive nationalism, without aggressive nationalism and the other concept is armaments, these things are not possible. Now let's move to the second point. And I hope that this chapter is not going to be difficult for you because maximum things you have studied in the previous chapter only. Now the next point is rise of fascism and Nazism. See, two terms are there. One is fascism and one is Nazism. Fascism is related to your Italy and Nazism is related to your Germany. Both the things are same. If I talk about both the terms are similar. Only the differences are there. Only there is a change in the names. Germany was dissatisfied with the harsh policies, harsh treaties, whereas on the other side, Italy was unsatisfied with the Treaty of Versailles. क्योंकि जब फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर खत्म हुआ तो इंग्लैंड, फ्रांस, जापान सबको बहुत कुछ मिल गया. They got a huge number of colonies, whereas on the other side, Italy चाहता था कि उसे भी कुछ अच्छे एरियाज मिले, but Italy was not able to attain good areas. उसके पास अच्छे एरियाज उसके हाथ में नहीं आ पाए. So that's why it was the target of Italy to regain her lost glory. अगला टारगेट इटली का था कि वो जो जो मतलब वॉट एवर एरियाज वॉट इट वांटेड इट शुड अगेन गेट इट बैक. नाउ द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज मुसोलिनी. अच्छा, उस समय जो पावर में थे इन इटली, बेनिटो मुसोलिनी वॉज इन पावर. अब इन्होंने डिक्टेटरशिप स्टार्ट कर दी. डिक्टेटरशिप मीन्स तानाशाही, वन मैन शो और वन पार्टी वन लीडर, नो ऑपोजिशन. सो दिस एस्पेक्ट वॉज स्टार्टेड बाय बेनिटो मुसोलिनी in Italy, and the same thing was started by Adolf Hitler in Germany. This person, Mussolini, was totally against the Treaty of Versailles. He demonstrated her imperialistic designs by attacking Abyssinia. अच्छा, League of Nations जो बना था, this League of Nations was a complete failure. This league was not able to take any action against Italy. अच्छा, इससे क्या हुआ कि लीग की क्या पावर थी, लीग का क्या स्टैंडर्ड था, ऑल द वर्ल्ड केम टू नो अबाउट इट. नाउ द नेशंस वर नॉट स्केयर्ड. नाउ द नेशंस वर नॉट स्केयर्ड ऑफ दिस लीग ऑफ नेशंस बिकॉज it was only for the sake of peace, but actually it was not having any powers in its hand. लीग ऑफ नेशंस की कमी क्या थी? लीग ऑफ नेशंस की सबसे बड़ी कमी थी इसके कोई प्रिंसिपल्स नहीं थे, इसके पास मनी पावर नहीं थी और इसके पास डिफेंस पावर नहीं थी. इट वॉज वीक इन मैन एंड मनी टर्म्स. अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ अगर हम लोग जर्मनी की बात करें तो एडोल्फ हिटलर वांटेड टू रीस्टैब्लिश जो इनकी पुरानी जो वैल्यू थी, फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर से पहले जो वैल्यू थी इंटरनेशनल अरीना में, ही वांटेड टू रीगेन इट बैक. अच्छा, धीरे धीरे द मिलिट्री changes which were brought due to this Treaty of Versailles were very harsh. So his main target was he wanted to declare rearmament. इन्होंने rearmament declare कर दिया, and in 1938 he annexed the areas of Austria and dismembered Czechoslovakia. अच्छा, हिटलर और मुसोलिनी, these two candidates were the root cause of moving or making the world enter into Second World War. And this Second World War was so disastrous that till today Japan is suffering from. Now let's move to the other point. Okay children, any doubt in this? Kritika, Shringarika, Manas, any doubt in this? If any doubt is there, you can mention it. Now, let's move to the second point, that is Japanese invasion of China. Japanese invasion of China. इसका क्या मतलब हुआ? देखो, it simply means that after the First World War, Japan became the most powerful nation of Asia continent. एशिया कॉन्टिनेंट का अगर कोई सबसे मजबूत देश बना तो वो था जापान. जापान गॉट इनफ एरियाज फ्रॉम दिस ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्सलीज एंड ऑन द अदर साइड. अब सोचो, जस्ट थिंक टुडे, इज इट पॉसिबल दैट जापान कैन कैप्चर एनी पार्ट्स ऑफ चाइना का, आई एम जस्ट टेकिंग द नेम ऑफ चाइना, नोबडी कैन इवन थिंक ऑफ. सो जापानीज की जो समय पॉलिसी थी फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद, देयर टारगेट वाज द एक्सपेंशन. Japan's ambition rose after the First World War. The First World War में Treaty of Versailles से इसको फायदा हुआ. So the main target was to attain the areas of Far East. अच्छा, 1931 में जापान ने मैंचूरिया पे कब्जा कर लिया. अच्छा, लीग ने इसको अपोज किया, लीग ऑफ नेशंस अपोज्ड इट, बट देयर वाज नो इफेक्ट ऑफ दिस ऑन जापान. अच्छा, मंचूरिया जो है वो चाइना का पार्ट है, उस पर कब्जा किया और वहाँ पे अपनी सरकार बना दी, एंड दे फॉर्म देयर ओन गवर्नमेंट. अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ विदाउट डिक्लेयरिंग एनी काइंड ऑफ वॉर, और यू कैन से अनडिक्लेयर वॉर्स वर बीइंग स्टार्टेड ओवर चाइना बाय जापान इन द ईयर 1931. अच्छा, चाइना ने लीग ऑफ नेशंस अपील तो करी, बट लीग ऑफ नेशंस कोई एक्शन नहीं ले पा रहा. अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ ब्रिटेन और फ्रांस जो थे, ब्रिटेन एंड फ्रांस, दे वर द टू मेन मेंबर्स और दे वर द लीडिंग मेंबर्स। ब्रिटेन एंड फ्रांस ये लीग ऑफ नेशंस के मेन मेंबर्स थे। अच्छा, इन लोगों ने भी कोई ध्यान नहीं दिया। अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ अब टीम्स बननी स्टार्ट हो गई थी फॉर द सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर। बर्लिन, रोम, टोक्यो, एक्सेस। कैन एनी चाइल्ड टेल मी द nations of Berlin, Tokyo, axis? Mention the name the nations of Yes, children, type it fast. Name the nations of Rome, Berlin, Tokyo, axis. Okay, children. The answer for this question is Germany, Italy, and Japan. Germany, Italy, and Japan. They were the three nations, and the capitals were Rome, Berlin, and Tokyo. The capital of Germany was Berlin. So now, these three nations, they initiated or they started the formation of teams. And what was the purpose? Their main intention was the policy of expansion. Policy of expansion means they wanted to increase their areas more and more. And what was the method? The method was only conquest. Okay, अब देखो देशों की पावर बढ़ रही थी, the power of the nations was increasing. League of Nations was weak and the other nations started becoming stronger. And as a nation became stronger, it left out the League of Nations. Japan left League of Nations in the year 1933 and started occupying the British and American properties in China. And just see the actions of Japan. Japan started reoccupying or started capturing the areas of America and Britain which were prevailing in China. Britain and France, they followed the policy of appeasement. देखो policy of appeasement हमारे syllabus में नहीं है, but you should know the meaning of this. The word policy of appeasement means, as you all know, that this Treaty of Versailles was very harsh. और इसको पूरा चॉक आउट किया था इंग्लैंड और फ्रांस ने, स्पेशली फ्रांस ने इसको बनाया था पूरा. तो अब ना फ्रांस रियलाइज, लेटर ऑन फ्रांस रियलाइज दैट वी हैव डन अ मिस्टेक, ये ट्रीटी गलत बनी है. जस्ट टू ओवर शेडो इट, सिर्फ छुपाने के लिए, जस्ट टू ओवर शेडो इट, दे स्टार्टेड निगलेक्टिंग द एक्टिविटीज ऑफ जर्मनी. जर्मनी की एक्टिविटीज को निगलेक्ट करने लगे. जर्मनी को चाहते तो उस समय रोक सकते थे, लेकिन जर्मनी को इसलिए नहीं रोका. दे थॉट दैट वी हैव डन अ मिस्टेक बाय मेकिंग द ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्सलिस. लेट अस overlook the activities of Germany, but they were unaware that this overlooking will turn into Second World War. So thus the war was inevitable under these circumstances. So it's common thing that under these conditions the war was non-stoppable or unstoppable. Now my next point is failure of the League of Nations. Okay, the first question, when was the League of Nations formed? Answer this. When was the League of Nations formed? Okay, yes, children. The correct answer is League of Nations was formed in the year 1920. Okay, League of Nations बना था 1920 में. And all of you know that why the League of Nations was formed. League of Nations को बनाने के पीछे मेन टारगेट था. इसको बनाया गया था फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद, 1918 के बाद ये बना, ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्साइल्स बनी, उसके बाद 1920 में इस्टेब्लिश हो गया. The main purpose behind the formation of League of Nations was that in the upcoming period, no future wars should take place. Okay, लेकिन शुरुआत में ही यूएसए को लीग ऑफ नेशंस को बहुत बड़ा झटका लगा. क्यों? क्योंकि इसको यूएसए ने ज्वाइन नहीं किया. इसको सपोर्ट किया, लेकिन लीग ऑफ नेशंस को यूएसए ने ज्वाइन नहीं किया. अच्छा, दूसरी चीज, इवन दोज, और कई ऐसे भी देश थे जो कलेक्टिव रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी, कलेक्टिव सिक्योरिटी में विश्वास नहीं रखते थे. Some nations were there, those who believing that we can secure our nation by ourselves. We don't require any helping hand in the form of League of Nations. Okay, League of Nations was established. जो League of Nations था, देखो उस समय क्या प्रॉब्लम थी, that the big nations, powerful nations were harassing or creating problems for the small nations or the weak nations. जो League of Nations था, ये छोटे देशों पे which were less powerful, या जो डिफेंस में कमज़ोर थे या फिनांस में कमज़ोर थे, it was able to show its power on only those nations which were small in size, only on the small and weaker nations. Whereas if a big nation, big power is taking any action, then there was no reaction being given from League of Nations. अच्छा, लीग ऑफ नेशंस ने उस समय भी कोई खेल नहीं किया. जब फ्रांस पोलैंड को सपोर्ट कर रहा था, उन्हें लिथुआनिया का एक पार्ट कब्जा कर लिया. वाई? क्योंकि इसमें फ्रांस इन्वॉल्व था. दैट्स वाई लीग ऑफ नेशंस डजंट सेड एनीथिंग. अच्छा, उसके बाद एक ट्रीटी साइन हो गई थी फर्स्ट वर्ल्ड वॉर के बाद. ट्रीटी ऑफ वर्साइल्स में क्या डिसाइड हुआ था, दैट नो सीक्रेट ट्रीटीज विल बी साइन, नो टर्म्स और पैक्ट्स वुड बी साइंड. लेकिन 1923 में देयर वाज अ थ्रेट ऑफ वॉर बिटवीन इटली एंड ग्रीस. इटली ने कह दिया कि हम लीग का इंटरफियरेंस नहीं चाहते हैं. एंड डिस्प्यूट वॉज सेटल्ड बाय डायरेक्ट मीडिएशन ऑफ ग्रेट ब्रिटेन एंड फ्रांस. अच्छा, ब्रिटेन और फ्रांस ने मीडिएट करके प्रॉब्लम को सॉर्ट आउट कर दिया, लेकिन इटली ने कह दिया कि हमें लीग ऑफ नेशंस की सहायता नहीं चाहिए. अच्छा, अब इसमें हो क्या रहा था कि लीग ऑफ नेशंस की जो स्टैंडर्ड था, जो इसकी वैल्यू थी, वो धीरे धीरे घटती जा रही थी. अच्छा, इसमें हो क्या रहा था, या तो ये लोग लीग को एकदम किनारे कर दे रहे थे, या लीग को एकदम अनदेखा कर दिया जा रहा था. अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ अब एशिया का देश जापान ने कहाँ पे कब्जा कर लिया, चाइना के किस पार्ट पे, मंचूरिया. सो इन दैट ऑल्सो लीग ऑफ नेशंस ने उसको धमकी दी, लेकिन उसने लीग ऑफ नेशंस ने जापान को वॉर्न किया, लेकिन उसमें कोई असर नहीं हुआ, और उसने बाद में चल के लीग ऑफ नेशंस को छोड़ भी दिया. 1931 में उसने 1933 में जापान ने लीग ऑफ नेशंस को ही छोड़ दिया. अच्छा, मोर एवर जो मेंबर स्टेट्स थे, दे वर नॉट विलिंग टू अप्लाई. जो भी मेंबर नेशंस थे, कोई भी इसको फाइनेंस नहीं कर रहा था. लीग ऑफ नेशंस वाज नॉट बीइंग फाइनेंस्ड. नो नेशन वाज विलिंग इनफ टू फाइनेंस दिस लीग ऑफ नेशंस. अच्छा, दूसरी तरफ लीग ऑफ नेशंस था, दैट वाज नॉट एबल टू मेंटेन इंटरनेशनल पीस एंड सिक्योरिटी. मतलब इसका होना या ना होना, उससे कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ रहा था. Thereafter they themselves entered into mutual policies and military alliances. अब उसके बाद क्या हुआ, जितने भी देश थे, जो पावरफुल देश थे, वो अपने आप म्यूचुअल पॉलिसीज और अपने आप मिलिट्री अलायंसेस बना ले रहे थे. जैसे रोम, बर्लिन, टोक्यो एक्सिस बना, ये इन्होंने अपने आप देशों ने बना लिया. एंड लीग ऑफ नेशंस could not take any kind of action against this, क्योंकि उसके पास कमी किन चीज़ें की थी, मैन एंड मनी. मैन से आई वॉन्ट टू से अबाउट द डिफेंस, सोल्जर्स उसके पास नहीं थे. अदर पॉइंट इज कि इट वॉज नॉट बीइंग सैंक्शनड. नन ऑफ द नेशंस वर विलिंग टू पे एनी काइंड ऑफ फाइनेंशियल एड टू दिस लीग ऑफ नेशंस. नाउ लेट्स मूव टू द नेक्स्ट पॉइंट. मेरा अगला पॉइंट है हिटलर्स अटैक ऑन पोलैंड और हिटलर्स विक्ट्री ऑन पोलैंड. देखो, as I told you in the beginning that पोलैंड वॉज बींग प्रोवाइडेड अ लैंड रूट, पोलैंड को एक रास्ता दे दिया गया था जर्मनी के बीचों बीच से. सो according to the Treaty of Versailles, Germany was divided into two parts in order to give a land route to Poland up to the sea. अच्छा, और जो पोर्ट ऑफ डेंजिंग था ये भी उठा के दे दिया गया पोलैंड को. अब समझो, पोर्ट विच इज वेरी एसेंशियल प्लेस फॉर एनी कंट्री फॉर इट्स ट्रेड, दैट पोर्ट वाज आल्सो गिवन टू, पोर्ट ऑफ डेंजिंग जो था वो उठा के दे दिया गया पोलैंड को. जर्मनी को बीच से काट के रास्ता निकाल दिया गया. सो जर्मनी वांटेड, नाउ द टारगेट ऑफ जर्मनी was to regain its lost territories. अच्छा, दूसरी प्रॉब्लम, जो सिटी ऑफ डेंजिंग थी, पोर्ट चला गया था पोलैंड के पास, और जो सिटी ऑफ डेंजिंग थी मेनली उसमें जर्मन्स रहते थे. इट वाज मेनली मैक्सिमम सिटीजन्स, मेजॉरिटी सिटीजन्स वर द जर्मन्स. लेकिन डेंजिंग कॉरिडोर इन लोग के हाथ में चला गया था. जर्मनी जो था, अगर ये इस पर कब्जा कर लेता, डेंजिंग कॉरिडोर अगर फिर से इसके पास आ जाता, so it would be possible for Germany to connect with East Prussia. अपने दूसरे पार्ट से ये मिल सकता था, ईस्ट और वेस्ट जर्मन जो था उससे मिल सकता था. ओके, नेक्स्ट पॉइंट इज, जर्मनी ने एक नॉन एग्रेशन पैक्ट साइन किया रशिया के साथ. नॉन एग्रेशन पैक्ट मीन्स दैट बोथ दिस नेशंस, जर्मनी और रशिया, एक दूसरे पे अटैक नहीं करेंगे. पोलैंड वॉज एक्यूज्ड ऑफ कमिटिंग एट्रोसिटीज. अच्छा, दूसरी दिक्कत क्या थी? Poland was found, ये माना गया, ये it was realized that Poland is creating problem for the people, for the Germans, those who are living there. जो जर्मन्स रह रहे थे पोलैंड में, उन लोग को प्रॉब्लम्स क्रिएट किए जा रहे थे. सो अब देखो, 1 सितंबर 1939 में, ऑन 1 सितंबर 1939 द जर्मन आर्मीज मार्च्ड टू पोलैंड. अब देखो, लड़ाई किसकी किसके? सिर्फ जर्मनी और पोलैंड की. जर्मनी की फौज 1 सितंबर 1939 को मूव कर जाती है पोलैंड पे अटैक करने के लिए. लड़ाई सिर्फ दो देश की, जर्मनी पोलैंड. बट इन द मिडिल, फ्रांस एंड ब्रिटेन. जर्मनी अटैक कर रहा है पोलैंड पे 1 सितंबर को, उधर से फ्रांस और ब्रिटेन अल्टीमेटम दे रहे हैं जर्मनी को. अच्छा, इसके बदले में, इसके रिप्लाई में जर्मनी ने क्या किया? इन्होंने 3 सितंबर को फ्रांस पे भी अटैक कर दिया. 3 सितंबर को फ्रांस पे अटैक कर दिया. ओके, और 3 सितंबर को ही ब्रिटेन और फ्रांस ने डिक्लेयर कर दिया वॉर अगेंस्ट जर्मनी. अब कमी एक की, दो देशों की लड़ाई. इट वॉज अ वॉर बिटवीन टू नेशंस, जर्मनी एंड पोलैंड, बट ड्यू टू द इंटरफियरेंस ऑफ ब्रिटेन एंड फ्रांस, 4 nations are being involved. Okay, the German armies completed the conquest. अच्छा, 3 हफ्ते से भी कम लगा, उन लोगों ने पोलैंड पे कब्जा कर लिया, और कोई भी चीज़, none of the things, no aid could reach the Poland, could reach the natives of Poland. Okay, in spite of the declaration of war, there was, देखो लड़ाई स्टार्ट हो चुकी थी लेकिन एक्चुअल फाइटिंग अभी नहीं हुई थी. फॉर मैनी मंथ्स, कई महीनों तक, 3-4 महीने तक कोई लड़ाई नहीं हुई. मीन्स इट वॉज इन अ वेरी स्मॉल मैनर, इन ए पीसफुल मैनर. अच्छा, इसीलिए जो 1939 से लेके 1940 तक का पीरियड है, इट वॉज टू अप्रैल 90 फॉर द पीरियड फ्रॉम सितंबर 1939 टू अप्रैल 1940 वॉज डॉर्मेंट. डॉर्मेंट मीन्स इट वॉज नॉट टोटली इन्वॉल्व इन बैटल्स. हम ये नहीं कह सकते कि उस समय पूरी तरीके से लड़ाई स्टार्ट हो गई थी. Fights were there, but they were not on a very large scale. सिर्फ 2-3 महीने वॉर चला था, उसके बाद the conditions have changed. Now, yes children, any kind of problem to anyone? Any problem to anyone? Okay, children. Now, we have just done this chapter. अगर हम लोग शॉर्ट में बात करें तो if I talk in short, let me just do the fast talks. See, at that time हम लोग को जो मेन इंपॉर्टेंट चीज़ है, कुछ पॉइंट्स याद रखने होंगे. दैट आर अलाइड पावर्स, द 4 कंट्रीज इंक्लूडेड. Okay, first let's talk about the few terms. Allied powers. The 4 countries included in the Allied powers were Britain, France, America and Russia. They were the Allied powers. Next word is Cold War. The Cold War is a situation. अगला टर्म है हमारी, इसके बाद सेकेंड वर्ल्ड वॉर खत्म हो गया, उसके बाद कोल्ड वॉर का सिनेरियो चल रहा था. Okay, and during this time only, UNESCO was formed. UNO was formed. Can anyone tell me the date of when was UNO formed? Mention the date. When was UNO formed? Okay, Shringarika, you asked me the question meaning of applying economic sanction. The word economic sanction means to provide any kind of financial assistance or financial aid. So that was the target. Now, let me move to the other term. As you all know, as written by Anushka, that UNO was formed on 24th October 1945. Now, my next question is, okay, and as you know, children, Russia was a communist nation. Italy was a communist and America was a capitalist nation. Now, in short, let me tell you what were the causes of the Second World War. Failure of democracies in Europe and the rise of dictatorship in Germany, Italy, Russia, Spain, Portugal. Reaction against the unjust and humiliating Treaty of Versailles. Aggressive national and expansion policy of Italy, Germany, Soviet Russia and Japan. Next point is armament race and the manufacture of deadly weapons of mass destruction. Next point is the weakness of the League of Nations to take any initiative to stop the aggression. Next point is formation of the rival blocs of states in the world. And children, the immediate cause was the German invasion of Poland on 1st September 1939. Now, and after this, we are not having consequences, we are not having causes and origin. So now, let's move to the question round, and that is short answer questions. So are you ready for the questions? Now let's move to the first question. My first question would be soon visible on your screen. The question is, define dictatorship. What is the meaning of dictatorship? Yes, children, give the answer. Define dictatorship. Shringarika, Anushka, give the answer fast, children. Okay. Government led by a single person or dictator. Okay, right answer. The answer is correct. That is dictatorship. Shringarika, your answer. Kritika, your. And Manas. Okay, now let's move to the other question. My second question is, name the countries where dictatorship arose after the First World War. Name the countries where dictatorship arose after the First World War. Yes, answer is correct. That is Italy and Germany. Good. Now, children, I've asked you the first question. What do you mean by dictatorship? Now, let me define the word. What do you mean by dictatorship? Dictatorship is an antithesis of democracy. Dictatorship is an antithesis of democracy. It is a rule by a dictator who has got total powers of a country which he rules without popular consent. It gives no rights to people, tolerates neither opposition nor criticism. It envisages one party, one rule, controlled by one leader with complete authority. The individual, his freedom, his thinking are controlled by the state. Okay, my next question. Mention the two most important causes for the rise of fascism. Mention two important causes for the rise of fascism. What were they? Yes, children, give the answer fast. Mention the two most important causes of the rise of fascism. Anushka, Shringarika, Manas, and Kritika Maheshwari. You haven't given any answer. So give your answer, Kritika and Manas. coalition of 6 ruling parties. Okay, the answer is right. Let me tell you, children. Mention the 2 most important causes of the rise of fascism. This question was in the year 2020. This year only, this was the board question. The answer for this is dissatisfaction over humiliating peace treaties and economic crisis. Yes, political instability and economic crisis. Okay. Now the other question, my next question is, why were the Italians dissatisfied with the Treaty of Versailles? Why were the Italians dissatisfied with the Treaty of Versailles? Now answer this question. This is an important question. Answer this. Okay, children, the answer for this question is, why were the Italians dissatisfied with the Treaty of Versailles? The answer for this is, uh, Italians were dissatisfied with the treaty because they had joined the First World War on the side of Britain and France in the year 1915. In 1915, Italy hoped to get territories. Italy hoped to get territories such as Trentino, Trieste, Istra, Fiume, coastal regions of Dalmatia, Albania, and some parts of Germany and Turkey after their victory, but it was of no use. But the Paris peace treaties gave her nothing from the defeated German and Turkish empires. So Italians developed that they had won the war but lost the peace. Right answer. Now let's move to the other question. On which side did Italy fight in the First World War? The question is, on which side did Italy fight in the First World War? Okay, children, I'm telling you the answer for this question. On which side did Italy fight in the First World War? The answer for this question is, Italy fought the war on the side of the Allies. Allies means you Britain and France in the year 1915. Yes, so that's all for today, children. In the next class, in this week only, we'll be having the open session on the topic of Supreme Court.